Welcome to the Republican Professor. This morning we have with us Jessica Wilkinson.
Hello,
And
good morning.
good to have you, Jessica. And I'm in California and it's hot. It's 90 degrees already, 92
Oh,
degrees.
I'm
Crazy.
so jealous.
Oh, really?
Yeah,
And
I'm so jealous.
you're joining us from Washington, D.C., I think you said, right? Washington,
Vancouver, Washington.
Vancouver, Washington. Okay, sorry. I got the wrong Washington.
Mhm.
Well, at least I had the right president and I didn't say it was Jefferson, D.C. or, because I do that sometimes, Madison, D.C. Um, wow, these are really dumb jokes, but I enjoy them and I will be laughing at them by myself. And
Yes,
that's
I
enough for me.
appreciate them. Well, I'm jealous of your warm weather because we in the Pacific Northwest have um, a lot of green, but not a lot of sunshine. So, I mean, we have a lot of rain and gloom
Oh,
and gray clouds for
mm.
3/4 of the year.
Oh,
So,
wow. I didn't
yeah.
know that. Three
Mhm.
fourths? Oh,
I mean,
geez.
to me, but maybe it's because I'm from California that I long for the
Mm.
sunshine so much. But
What part of California are you from?
I am from Northern California and from the beautiful Mount Shasta, California area.
Very
And then I
nice.
moved to Southern California for college.
Okay.
And my husband grew up in Los Angeles and moved to Northern California for college. And that's how we met. We kind of flip flopped and we're here now. So.
And uh, in the Shasta area, is that sunny a lot or what's the weather
Yes,
like? Oh, is
yes.
it sunny? Okay.
Yeah. It's they have all the four seasons, a lot of snow
Oh,
from the
wow. That's
mountains,
cool.
but yeah, but they still have sunshine even when it's below freezing. So,
Oh, man, that's awesome. That sounds
yeah.
like Colorado where I grew up. I grew up
Yes.
in Colorado and we had snow, four seasons, and the sun was shining. It seems like most of the year. Like oftentimes we would get snow and maybe it would be overcast in the morning and then by the afternoon it'd be sunshine and the snow would be melting already.
Yeah,
So
very
it was
similar.
really, yeah. Okay, cool.
Yeah.
Now you are a homeschooler,
Yes.
and how long have you been doing that?
We have been homeschooling for this is our 7th year. We
Wow.
started with my son, who is 11, when he was 5. We started when he was 5, starting kindergarten. So we have 4 children, ages 1.5 to 11.5. And so I have 3 that I'm kind of actively homeschooling and obviously a toddler. So, yeah.
Wow.
Mhm.
Geez. That sounds like a lot of work.
It is, but very rewarding.
Yes.
Yeah.
So with all of those kids, how in the world did you get the idea to homeschool? I mean, that just sounds like so painful. Are you just so far away from a normal school? Like
Great question. Well, when we started to consider homeschooling, I think our firstborn was 2 or
Mm,
almost 2. So we didn't even have our second child yet. And I was working.
okay.
Um,
Yeah.
at the time, I was working part time, I think, with some
Mhm.
attorneys in a corporate office. And I loved my work. And we did live in a rural area. So there weren't a lot of options as far as there was one, you know, government option, one public elementary school. But that
I
wasn't
like how
even
you
really,
put that. I like how
yeah.
you put there was a government option.
Yes. But that wasn't even really why I think we started to consider homeschooling. My husband is the one who thought of it first. He brought it up. It was something I had never considered. And
Hmm.
but I I didn't find the idea revolting. I had never considered it. My husband and I both grew up in public schools, K through 12. We
Hmm.
When you grow up in that system and you grow up around stereotypes around homeschoolers, like assuming that all homeschoolers are somehow socially awkward or destined to fail in the workplace or don't have access to what you have access to, there's definitely some arrogance to that and ignorance. But
Hmm.
if you grow up in that system, it's hard to imagine schooling outside of that format.
Yep.
So
That's right. Yeah.
my husband has some great intuition, and he
Mm,
figured it would be best for our son and our family. And so for a couple of
mhm,
years, it was just in the background as an option. We
mm.
moved to Portland, Oregon, which was not a rural area, a very urban area, and had a lot more options, but also a pretty sad government option down the street from where we lived. And a friend,
When you say sad, you mean you drive by the building and there's like gang signs everywhere.
yeah, we were our where we lived, yes, had a failing public elementary school. It was um we lived in a fairly high crime area.
Mhm.
And so even though there's plenty of wonderful teachers who worked there and wonderful families who sent their children there, uh, it wasn't even really an option for us. It didn't appeal to us at all. So, and that's not because we were rolling in the dough and we could afford a private school option or anything like that. It just wasn't an option, which probably a lot of parents can relate to. So we also wanted to remain pretty we wanted to be able to move because my husband was finishing up school and we wanted to
Yeah.
be mobile. So we homeschooling provided a great way to remain mobile and be able to follow his career if we moved. And so when a friend showed me a program called Classical Conversations,
Hmm.
which laid out this really easy, beautiful format for homeschoolers to join, I jumped. And when my son was 5, and by then I had a second child. So
Would you say it was
mhm.
called Classical Conversations?
Classical Conversations. And Classical Conversations is a homeschool program. It is a tuition-based academic program if you enroll in a local community. It started, I think, in the 1990s, but it is there are local communities offering Classical Conversations programs in every single state in the United States, in Washington, D.C., in Puerto Rico, in over 50 countries now in 2022. So its growth has been exponential.
Hmm.
Um, and that's because what it offers is so great. It provides a path for parents who feel the need to homeschool and don't know how. They want their child to have a great quality
Ah,
education that maybe they didn't even have themselves. So they want to know, how do I pass off an education I didn't even have, but I know I
wow.
want for my child?
That's good.
How do I pass off a quality education that I can't afford in a private setting? And Classical Conversation lays out a path for K through 12 homeschool families to not only follow a classical education program, but to join a local community so that they're not alone. They socialize, they actually meet once a week. They have tutors and classmates in a
Oh,
small
that's cool.
classroom size. They have access to free curriculum, free training in the summer, free tutor training for parents if they want to have a
Wow.
part-time job. It's an amazing resource and I highly recommend it.
I think as soon as you said tuition based,
hmm
there's probably some people listening to this in the future that are thinking, gosh, this started to sound great. And
Yes. Yeah.
totally get, you have to bring money in. I mean, that
Yeah.
you got to pay the teachers. That
hmm
makes sense. I mean,
Yeah.
you have to put the website up and all that.
hmm
Those people need to be paid.
Right.
Um, but it's really tough for
hmm
parents because they're in such a bind. If from whatever perspective you're coming from, you're looking at that public school and you're like, my tax money is
Right.
going to that dang thing,
Yeah. You're right.
and I'm already paying taxes, and it's like now I have to shell out also
hmm
for private.
Yeah.
You just feel like you're getting screwed there, and it's
Yeah.
just like so um
Well, you
is
are.
it prohibited? Yeah.
You are.
Okay, yeah, let's just put it out. Just
You
like
are.
let's just say call it a spade a spade.
hmm
Um,
In the state of Washington, I
yeah.
think we pay 17,000 a year per student for K through 12 public education. I think the national average is about 12,000 a year per
Sounds right.
student, but in Washington, it's especially brutal. And so,
Yeah.
yes, you are
Mhm.
getting screwed.
There, I happen to know there's research that says, been pretty high level. I mean, it's Harvard.
Hmm.
It's not me.
Hmm.
That says that the outcomes, the the success, however you measure success, let's assume you can measure success, but the uh the I'm going to screw this up a little bit, but what the success outcomes, the best success outcomes do not correlate well
Yeah.
with how much money is being spent per pupil by the government.
Yeah.
That's scary.
Yeah, it is
That's
scary.
scary.
Yeah.
So some of the systems that pay the most per pupil, and I think it's like Washington D.C. and I don't
Hmm.
even know,
Hmm.
probably Washington is up there.
Hmm.
Um, they're mostly Democrat places. I mean, when I say that, it's kind of like saying uh the grass is green. I'm just describing it. I'm not it's not a judgment. I'm just
Right.
saying
That's
that's
just a fact.
Washington D.C. is entirely Democrat. I don't think there's a single elected or a married elected official, and you'll get that later, serving that's a Republican in the local DC. I'm not
Wow.
talking about Congress, right?
Hmm. Right.
Obviously, that's
Right.
all the whole across the country, but the local District of Columbia is entirely
Wow.
Democrat. I mean, so I mean, if let's just be fair here. I mean, if it was like uh, a city like entirely run by Republicans, and it was that size, it was a huge city, and it
Hmm.
was a huge important city, like it was the seat of a major government. It was all Republicans, and it was failing to that extent. What do you think the reaction would be? I mean, it's just
Right.
like, but for some
Yeah.
reason, if it's Democrats running it, then people will just go like, "Oh, they're trying their best."
Yeah. Just give us
You
some
don't
more
understand.
money and it might get better.
We have very good intentions. You just don't
Yeah.
understand. But
Yeah.
Republicans can't say, "Oh, we have good intentions, so just give us a pass." We never get that. But anyway,
Yeah.
but
Well, yeah.
it's just what
I
I
was going to
noticed.
say, I really agree with you. I think our state has something like a C minus in its schools. And I'm sure yeah, the national average is pretty pathetic. It doesn't seem that more money has helped anybody, but the ones that it really hasn't helped, and homeschoolers illustrate this, it hasn't helped low income families, which low income families are
Yeah.
the reason we
Mhm.
keep public schools open. It's the reason we use for reform and more money. We, all of us, we care about the children. Democrats and Republicans care about the children. We want them all to have an education. We've been told that education can help you cross class barriers and raise you up and help you reach your dreams. And there is one group that without public education, we've been told wealthy children, they'll have access to options, right?
Yeah, of
But
course.
they can escape it. Their parents can help them escape it. We understand that. We generally agree on that. And there is a group that will illustrate for the whole country that the more money public schools get, um, almost like the more they harm the low income homeschoolers.
Hmm.
Even the
So
New York
you're
Times.
you're you're concerned about the lower income people being harmed. That's what I
Yes.
just heard you say.
Yes. Yes.
So
So,
that's just remember that.
oh,
Everybody listening to this,
yes.
the heart of Jessica is coming out here. She's concerned about the well-being of really vulnerable people. And the
Yes.
government is not doing it. It's not meeting what it's supposed to be doing.
No.
Oh,
And um, when your only option is compulsory government education, you don't know that income and race are not determinants of your school success.
mm.
Does that make sense? So
Yeah. Yeah.
if there's no competition And for 100 years, we have compulsory government education in the United States. And there's a certain demographic that is always at the bottom of the test scores. We are told for multiple generations that the reason is because because of their skin color or because of their wealth. And in fact, that's the argument used to protect compulsory government education. But guess what? Homeschoolers have blown that up.
Oh.
Homeschoolers are blowing that up right now. The New York Times reported in 2021 that the greatest increase in homeschooling right now is among low-income families.
Really?
And guess what?
Wow.
Yes.
Wow, I did not know that.
Yes, and guess what?
That's surprising.
When you test homeschoolers, guess what? Their income has no role in how well they test. Cool. Their race has no role in how well they test. I feel like if there's nothing else, the biggest takeaway is that marginalized people who are frequently used to promote government education and to protect it
by the teachers unions.
Yes,
that's really what's happening.
Union. I mean,
because it's about government jobs for people who vote a certain way.
It's a huge business. It's a powerful. The largest labor union in the country is the NEA, I believe.
Yep, that's right.
And I'll quote Cheryl Field Smith. She's dug into this actually, and she wrote in 2013, Black home education represents a vehicle of resistance to institutionalized racism and ideological mismatches between Black families and their educational needs. I
heard you say institutional racism, and
yes.
I think somebody's listening to that in the future and they're thinking, wait, did you just say institutional racism? Wait, I'm trying to categorize you. What are you saying about that?
Well, I was a sociologist.
Yeah, what's that? What do you think the upshot of that quote is? Would you mind repeating it just one more time?
Yeah. So okay. This professor, I think she basically started studying African American families, and specifically in the South. I think a lot of them were from Atlanta, Georgia, but there were other groups. And there's been evidence for, I want to say, a couple decades now that Black homeschoolers test 35 percentile points or something like that higher than all their peers in public schools. That's a roundabout guess.
Wow.
I mean, it's kind of been over the map, but even when you control for income.
Well, how do their parents pay for the tuition?
So parents pay for the tuition in homeschooling?
Yeah.
Oh, well, that's a great question.
Let's say I'm a low incomer and I'm listening to this.
Yeah.
And I'm like tracking with you 100%. The Dems are constantly on my heels, and I feel like I know what's going on. It's like the jig is up. And I feel like I'm onto them, and I'm like, okay, I know this is pretty much just about teacher jobs and salaries and summers off and paychecks, and I understand teachers work hard. I am a teacher.
Yes.
I know.
We understand
firsthand.
There's great people there. Yes.
So, but we're talking about on an institutional level. Let's say I'm a low income parent, and I have I'm like at my wit's end here. I'm like, I'm looking at my little son Johnny, and my little daughter Johnnyette. I wasn't very creative with my names.
No, you weren't.
And I'm like, I only get one of this kid and only one of this kid in my life. I can't like keep getting them. This kid is precious. I don't want to screw him up by sending him there. But my back's against the wall. I love what I'm hearing from you.
Mm-hmm.
on this, but then you say tuition based and my brain shuts off and
Mm-hmm.
I'm like, they win, the Dems
Yeah.
win.
Yeah.
And
Yeah.
you know,
Yeah.
it's not
Yeah.
about Dem versus R
Right.
exactly, but I mean it's obliquely about that,
Mm-hmm.
but it's not in this case. What I'm saying is it's just about this kid, the Johnny, Ed and Johnny. How do they, and the parent is just dying over here.
Mm-hmm.
How do they get their kid in there?
Yeah, valid question. And well, first of all, the program I do is tuition based, and an example is, it's like maybe $300 a kid for the whole year or something. So it's not
Oh
like
geez.
we're not talking,
Well,
we're not
how do
talking.
they pay their bills with that? That's
So,
hardly anything.
this is the beauty of a free market and a free
Mm.
market in education, because during
Wow,
the
300.
pandemic, Black homeschool families grew fivefold.
What?
Fivefold.
Are you serious?
I am dead
I did not know
serious.
that.
They quintupled during the pandemic. And the regular homeschool population, or I think maybe the white home, I think overall it doubled, but Black homeschoolers specifically, it quintupled. Now I am referring to Black homeschoolers, not assuming that all Blacks are low income or that all they're, but I am not picking on, but I am referencing them because I do believe that Black families will illustrate to the country how bad compulsory government education has been. And this is why. They have, unfortunately, their children have been at the bottom of literacy rates since compulsory education started, since after the Civil War, since desegregation. And so what they are proving by homeschooling, and we'll get to the part of how difficult that is with resources in a minute, but they are showing that by pulling out of the government system and becoming and stopping their dependence on the government system that was supposed to save them and promote them and help them cross class barriers and income barriers, which it hasn't, they are showing that their resourcefulness and that their intelligence and all of this is not dependent on the government, and that the free market will solve the problem. Now, here's an example. There are single mothers who take turns watching each other's children while the others work and they help homeschool. There are little learning pods that they erected to come and help school each other's children while the others are working. There are retired teachers helping school, educate these children while their moms are working. So what it actually shows is that alternatives of all kinds are really important, and competition, in my mind, is important for forcing government schools to do a better job. I actually think that
Amazing how that works, huh?
Yeah.
It's
I
like
think that
it's such a common sense thing. I think people get what you're saying.
Yeah.
If you just give them some analogies to it, like I don't know. I mean, these are maybe sound like stupid analogies. I'm just coming off of it. We can hone up these analogies later as we go along, but it doesn't have to be today. But like imagine you have government run, like we all agree we need candy. Okay. Candy is a huge deal. Candy and coffee. So, there's a certain mentality that says, well, let's start a government program that provides coffee for people because it's very important for people to have coffee.
Yes, it is.
And so you have I'm running for office and my opponent is against coffee. And the opponents say, no, I'm not against coffee. I just want the free market to do it because I don't trust the government to do it. And I'm like, no, you just don't want people to have coffee.
Yeah,
you don't want low income people to have coffee and candy. So we have this big the Department of Coffee, and I get, sworn in as the first secretary of coffee. And I got an undersecretary. We got a big budget, $70 billion for coffee. And it goes to these bloated salaries of 4,000 bureaucrats and, sedans and cell phones. And we turn the lights on in these government buildings. And we now Congress has to approve our budget every year, but then we also decide whether they get elected to approve, so it's just this big. And then there's a certain areas of the world or of our country that just get the government coffee, and it sucks.
Yes.
The coffee sucks.
Yes.
So what you're saying is that the only reason you can see it sucks is because you see this other coffee coming in from these private companies, these mom and pop shops.
Yeah.
Then you got to pay the taxes for the government coffee, but you also, every once in a while, you got to try this other coffee, and you can see there's no, and it's same with candy. Okay. Imagine it's like, just like, the reason I come up with the candy is because I'm staring at this jelly bean jar right now, and it's actually been there for like years. We never eat it, but I have it there because of, like, if there's ever an emergency, like, if there's like if there's an earthquake and you need sugar or something, that's just easy to put in your backpack. Well, it's just easier to put your backpack. If you have to walk 5 miles, you have some sugar.
I'll make sure to get some for my survival kit. I didn't have that before.
Oh, yes. Any survival store should have chocolate, hot chocolate, coffee, candy. This is stuff you don't think about, like, but until it, it's really bad, and then all of a sudden you're like, oh man, I could use a cup of hot chocolate right now, or cocoa. But anyway, so is that a good analogy, you think, with the competition? We get the competition. I mean, that you got Apple iPhones, you got Samsung.
Well, we get it.
Compare that to the payphone that I grew up with. The payphone, the payphone. I put a quarter in. I can't take your picture.
Yeah.
With the quarter, and I'm putting the stupid quarter in, and it doesn't go anywhere. And it's really heavy.
Yeah.
That's the public school, in case you're not following along. Like,
And it doesn't, and here's the thing, it doesn't mean there aren't great people in there trying to teach. And it doesn't mean there's not great families in there with great children.
There is one person. There is one good teacher out there.
The reality is that what we were talking about, it's easier to overcome that system when you have other resources, right? We were kind of touching on that. I actually think that like liberals or progressive types tend to do a decent job of acknowledging that it can be hard to overcome that system. Unfortunately, they use that rhetoric to drive the system forward. And in fact, they use that rhetoric to war against vouchers for low-income families to have choice. Like
that's a problem right there, because now you're affecting poor people. You're affecting whether they get money to educate their kid. That makes me mad.
Yeah, there's an example is the SCHOTT Foundation, I believe it is, or SCHOTT Foundation, SCHOTT, Foundation for Public Education. They talk all day about social justice. Their points have some great points. Unfortunately, they use their effort to work against people of color, in my opinion, and low-income families to protect the establishment of compulsory government education. And all you have to do is look at the alternatives that are out there and growing, and you will see that children and their families are being helped by alternatives and by competition. And you could, if you cared so much about the low income people having resources, you would write them a check to go towards the school of their choice that matches their family values and their style of needed education. If you actually didn't care about just protecting the system, in my opinion, that's my opinion. But homeschooling.
Well, your opinion is based on it's not like you're just sitting here shooting from the hip.
Yeah.
You have a lot of experience. You've thought deeply about this. Yeah. I can tell. You have a lot of real looking, but actually fake books behind you. Wait,
Yeah.
are those real?
It's a curtain. I just want to look
Those are
smart
awesome.
because people think homeschoolers aren't smart.
No, that's
No.
awesome. I love
Yeah,
those. I
no,
love
it's
those bookshelves.
you
Those are
know,
awesome.
I I am truly inspired by the parents I meet. When you talked about, well, what about me? I care about Johnny, and I won't even say the daughter's name because it was so bad. But what do I do? Like I said, you know, I am fortunate to homeschool with a community, but I'm a part of quite a few different communities. I think community life helps educate children. So we take part in a lot of different communities, but the classical conversations community of which I am a part that I see every week is filled with inspiration.
Hmm.
These we are all over the map income wise. We're all over parents. We're all over the map. Um,
So you're
edu-
saying your community that you're in now is not a bunch of it's not Ku Klux Klan members only?
yeah, correct. We
Okay.
have, yes, yes. There is an image promoted by the media that homeschoolers are just rich white Christians, maybe.
Hmm.
And
Okay.
that is not the
It's weird.
case.
It's weird to say. I don't understand. I get the political strategy. I'm not saying that I'm not,
Hmm.
I'm dumb. I'm too dumb to get the political strategy. I get the political strategy. What I don't understand is why it works on anybody. I don't understand why some people can't see through that, but
I know.
maybe you're
Well,
just
they
tired.
will.
You're working two jobs and you can't tell. It's hard. It's hard to know
Yeah.
what's true. So people say, well, there's a lot of manipulation.
Hmm.
There's a lot of like a lot of people are low attention span, not because they're stupid, but because they're stretched thin with energy. We've all been there. We
Yes.
know what that's
Yes.
like.
Yes.
And so when you're trying to put two and two together on something important to yourself, an issue on your radar, it's hard to know exactly who's telling the truth.
Hmm.
But at the
Yeah.
same time, kind of what you're saying is all you have to do is just open your eyes, you know,
Yeah. Yeah.
look at the public school who is
Hmm.
lying to you. Look at how hard they're trying to tell you that the people that are against those obviously failing public schools are racist. It's like, what, really? Hold on a sec.
Yeah.
Why don't we go back to the public school and how bad they suck and how
Yeah.
you can't change them all of a sudden?
Yes.
So you're saying is there an easy way to join the community? If I'm black, let's say I'm black and I'm high income. Let's say I'm an
Hmm.
attorney or I don't know,
Hmm.
whatever. I'm high income
Yeah.
and I show up at one of these community things. You're saying that I would be welcome?
Yes. And that question is not even a question. It's
Okay.
yes. Yeah.
Well, what if
I
I'm highly sensitive and I'm like, which is not a bad thing. I'm
Yeah.
highly sensitive too.
Hmm.
Hey, it's good to be highly sensitive
Hmm.
to some things. But let's say you had bad experiences in the past with people, maybe
Yeah.
racism,
Yeah.
and
Very
you're
real.
you're on the kind of lookout for that, and
Hmm.
you're very sensitive to whether you feel that,
Yeah.
and
Absolutely.
you're like, okay, I don't know, is this,
Hmm.
so you're saying uh
It,
that there will be enough resources there for me to feel like I'm coming into this fully as a member of this community?
Absolutely. I would say that our community would love to have you. We believe we can learn from each other in community and that we provide a fuller picture of God through our
What
ethnic diversity and other diversity. But I would
what
also,
about if I'm low income though? What, because I
yeah,
just gave
well,
you the, so I pull up in a Jaguar, okay, that's one thing.
yeah,
But
yeah.
but what if I'm low income?
Well, so
And
here's what I'll say. I will say that there are, first, because I have actually interviewed homeschoolers across the country and homeschoolers of color, I will say that there are plenty of homeschoolers that would prefer to meet, um, would prefer not to join a community like mine, more like for the classical, maybe Christian aspect. And not because there's not ethnic diversity in our program, which there is, but I'll get to that. I would just say that regardless of who you are as a parent, you have the ability to join or not join any community you want. And uh, and create the kind of community you want for your children. And there are hundreds of examples of this. In Florida, there's Black Home Educators of Florida, where they have community meetings where they share in it. And actually there is an attempt to reclaim what has been lost culturally from Black families. And I do think that in that instance, it's really important that they are leading that community and homeschoolers go to that and learn from it. I want to get to the price of my program, which it seems like you're driving at, but again,
well, it was kind of like a sociological,
yeah,
I think anybody who's low income might feel
like they can't do it.
a little worried that they're
Yeah.
going to fit in to something that costs money.
Okay, right. So on average, homeschoolers spend about $600 per student per year. That's on average. Some probably spend astronomical amounts, according to their resources, on piano lessons and Latin tutoring and sports leagues and private sports camps, who knows? And then some probably spend almost nothing per child.
Now,
In
how is this homeschooling though? I mean, like, what do I have to do? Do I have to give up my job?
No.
Oh, you don't. Okay, I missed that part. Okay,
in my program, we meet one day a week.
Oh,
So
okay.
the beauty of home education, which actually we should have defined at the beginning, technically, home education is homeschooling as I use it, and as the U.S. Department of Education uses it, and as the National Home Education Research Institute, which you talked to Dr. Brian Ray.
Yeah, we haven't posted that yet, but he's coming up.
Okay, so the homeschooling, as I have been using it throughout our conversation, refers to parent-directed education. It doesn't mean you're trapped at home all day. It doesn't mean you don't use other tutors or teachers in your child's life. And it doesn't mean, but
it doesn't mean your kids are weird and they just
it doesn't mean your kids are weird. It doesn't mean you're
chess with themselves.
Yeah, it doesn't mean you're paying for an expensive program, or that you're meeting once a week with a community like I am that does have a tuition. Okay. So what it does mean, it means you're not using public school curriculum. The government isn't calling the shots on your education. So there are online programs that parents do from home that are actually public school like homeschooling online. And it's actually, and there's hybrid programs and things like that. And part of that is because it's following the competition, and the competition is saying we want out. And so public schools have provided for a while now K through 12 online public homeschooling, but they are calling all of the shots. You are checking in with them. They're deciding the curriculum. You answer to them and they count your attendance. And so they get money from the state for your attendance. Okay. So homeschooling, when I refer to it, is simply parent-led education. Now, let me tell you, my homeschool community represents a diverse group ethnically, but educationally and age-wise, actually, and from where we come, all over the map, really. And basically, I homeschool with single mothers of 6 who still work full time, and their children are brilliant and wonderful. I homeschool with moms who have seen the fruit of their labor. And so they said, once you see the fruit of your labor as a home educator, you almost like, I can't go back. And so they, no matter what their financial situation says, they said, I'll just do what it takes. They work 3 part-time jobs and their husband works so that they can make ends meet and continue to give their children the education they think they should have. I mean, that is how significant the fruit is of homeschooling, that mothers and fathers will almost do whatever it takes once they've tasted it.
Wow.
Yeah.
So give it a shot.
They'll give it. Yeah.
What do you got to lose?
If they give it a shot. And that's what I think what happened during the pandemic is parents had their kids at home unexpectedly. And many of them got a look at their child's classroom for the first time via Zoom.
Oh, wow. Wow,
And
wow,
many
wow,
of
wow,
them,
wow.
and many of them got a look at teachers unions, the teachers union
Oh yeah,
priorities
yeah,
for
yeah.
the first time. So, for those who didn't know beforehand, they felt like, you're fighting for my kid's best. You care about my child, how they feel, how they, you
They
care.
actually believed the
They believed
mailers.
it. And so,
No.
yes. So the last 2 years showed parents who didn't, they're like, oh, heck no. And not only that, but parents who had their children at home, who tried doing their own thing rather than the busy work the public school gave them to do.
Busy
They,
work. I love that word.
yes, because
Yeah, just
yeah,
babysitting.
yes, the busy work that the schools give children, it's an insult to the child, really,
Yeah.
and their ability. And it's insulting to parents when they see it come home and they're trying to help them with their
It's
homework. And
it's it's an insult to the whole country
it's
because
an insult to the whole
guess
country.
what? You get charged with a crime you didn't do.
Hmm.
And you're like, I want a jury trial. Who's going to be sitting on that jury? It's going to be people that didn't learn a damn thing. They didn't
Hmm.
learn logic.
Hmm. Yeah.
And I've been on a jury in Compton. I've been on a murder trial. I've
Hmm.
seen it firsthand.
Hmm.
It's scary.
Hmm.
It's scary because the defense attorney or the prosecutor, who's telling the truth? You have to be able to have a BS detector, and that's not just something you get from osmosis.
Hmm.
You have to learn critical thinking at
Yeah.
some point. I mean, I studied logic.
Hmm.
So I was on there and I was able to track the arguments. I was taking very careful notes. I was like one of two jurors that was taking very careful notes.
Yeah.
I was diagramming the arguments. And so we went to deliberate, and I didn't say a dang thing for hours.
Hmm.
I just listened. And finally, there was disagreement on the jury. And I'll just finish this short story long. Uh, there was disagreement on the jury, and finally, I raised my hand. I said, "Okay, I I teach logic, and I was tracking the arguments. I was diagramming. Can I throw some stuff on the chalkboard and see what you guys think of it?" And we're like, "Yeah, okay." So I through the diagrams, and I said, "It seems to me that this is a fallacy right here. Remember when this guy kept saying this, and then remember when he was supposed to talk about this, but then he ended up talking about the hat over there in the alley. Remember that? What was the hat all about? What the hat? They were like, yeah, that doesn't make sense. That's a distraction. I said, well, that's called red herring. Anyway,
Hmm.
and then I talked for maybe 10 minutes, and then the deputy came in and said, we have to go to, I don't know if it was dinner or lunch. It was some meal, and then we weren't able to talk about it when we were left.
Right.
We came back. It must have been lunch.
Hmm.
So we came back. I think this was the second day of deliberation or something like that. I think, or I can't remember. But anyway, we came back from lunch. They just started filling out the cards, and I was like, "Oh, are we going to talk about it?" And they're like, "No, no, we all agree. It was pretty clear up there." That's the
And that's
power.
how
That's a
your
power.
fate
That's
is
a
decided.
power. Yeah, yeah. But and it's not like they're dumb. They're not dumb.
No,
They
no.
just need a. You need. It's like gasoline in a car. If you have a good education, the car works.
Yes.
You just need to have. You
Yes.
need it something to make it
Yes.
go.
Yes.
And uh, the lady that there was a black lady there who lived. She thinks she was like I swear she was like 93 or something. She was so old.
Hmm.
And she said that she had lived in Compton since when it was a white neighborhood. That's how old she was.
Yeah.
Okay. So I was like, wow. And she became angry after she saw my presentation. And we were in the elevator. We weren't supposed to talk about it,
Hmm.
but she was standing next to me in the elevator, and the attorneys were in the same elevator. We were going down, or going to the cafeteria or whatever. And she mentioned after the attorneys left the elevator, she said, I can't believe how manipulative they were to my feelings, because one of the set of the attorneys tried to make it about race.
Yes. Hmm.
And she was so angry, she was shaking
Hmm.
after I showed. anyway, and so then she agreed with me after.
Yeah.
So it's just interesting that to your point that it's insulting to the kids, I think is what you said, and it's
Hmm.
insulting to the parents. And I was just adding the other point, which is it's insulting to criminal defendants. It's insulting to our entire, these people vote,
Yes.
So anyway,
And well,
just to
no, and
support your point.
that woman could do a far better job than the government with her children and
Mm,
with her grandchildren. And that's what I believe. And I think that homeschoolers provide the evidence for it that we didn't have before. And she could pass on so much. So much is lost between generations. So much. This is where progressives do
that's
a
true. That's a good point.
this is where progressives or liberal tend to do a good job, in my opinion, at acknowledging how harmful re-education camps were for Native American children. They are good at it, at least being vocal about the culture lost, the language lost, the family ties lost, the fact that when children came back from boarding schools and they were not allowed to use their same names or their languages, things like that, they were alienated from their family. And progressives tend to be, good about vocalizing that. And what I'll say is, but they need to take it a step further, because our compulsory government education in the United States has been a tool for monopolizing the best times of childhood, and by alienating the child from their family and from their family values and from their culture, regardless of what it is, regardless of whatever background it is, whatever religious values their family has. And that was really a quote from John Taylor Gatto, which, have you heard of him?
Just now,
John Taylor Gatto, that's a
he was in
take.
the mafia.
No,
He was a
that's a
mafia
take
boss.
from something he said, and I absolutely agree with that.
What did you
uh,
say? You said something about optimizing.
Monopolizing it
Oh,
monopolizes the best times of
monopolizing.
childhood.
Monopolizes. What
And
does? What monopolizes the best?
government schooling,
Oh, okay.
and it alienates the child from their parents and from their family's values.
Hmm. Yeah, because
And
you really have somebody else raising your.
you have someone
Okay,
else
so
raising your kid.
now how does this work? Do they come over to your house? How does this work?
Well, the
Who's
program
going where? Where do the kids go?
the program that we do, again, we only meet once a week. So the majority of what I do is outside of this program. Classical Conversation lays out a path for me to follow curriculum wise. Generally speaking, there's still there's still options for parents. And again, this is one of thousands of programs for
Okay.
homeschoolers.
Yeah. So there's lots to choose from.
There's lots to choose from. This one is just, it is growing. It is in more than 50 countries. It is in more than, in the 50 states. And
Okay.
we follow a classical education program, which, for those who don't know, it's based on the trivium, which is a Latin term for three roads. And we believe we follow these three stages of learning: the grammar stage, the dialectic stage, and the rhetoric stage. And so Classical Conversations has laid out a program for homeschoolers to follow based on those three stages:
What was it? Grammar. What else?
grammar stage, the dialectic stage, and the rhetoric stage. And the grammar stage really refers to those young years where kids are like sponges and they just repeat everything. And if you've ever seen a Hallmark movie, maybe you've caught a glimpse of grammar schools as they once were, that little one-room schoolhouse where
Hmm.
kids of all ages are reciting Latin for, or something, or parts of speech. So
Mm.
what we do for mostly like K through fourth grade ish, if that's the comparison, or sixth grade, you have this stage where developmentally it's just natural to fill the
Right.
child with memorizing and reciting vocabulary for all sorts of subjects. And then
What age is the grammar stage?
that's about kindergarten through fourth grade,
Okay.
fourth to sixth grade. There's a range.
And the
Um,
dialectic part sounds like a Marxist almost word. If you've
Oh,
been to
yeah.
college, but what's dialectic mean?
That just refers to questions and conversation,
Oh,
thinking and
so like
questioning.
Socratic,
Yes,
basically.
exactly. And
What grade is that?
that kind of starts roughly sixth grade, sixth to eighth. But whenever you're learning a new subject, I've realized you kind of use all of these stages. When you're new to
Right.
something,
That's
you
true.
kind of learn the vocabulary and then you build on it with questions, right? And
Hmm.
answering those questions. And then when you master it, you kind of enter this rhetoric stage, which for classical conversation students are the high school years, where you
Okay.
master the art of presenting and persuading information that you understand. So, you reach a deeper level of knowing to where you can communicate it, and share it with others. But again,
Okay.
for adults, we go through these stages anytime we learn something new. But for children in our program, we kind of follow these natural stages of child development, where when a child is 11 and they like to push back with questions and stuff, they're naturally entering this, they're ready to go deeper and ask more questions about the information presented to them. um, and and then the older they get, the more. So there was a few.
Now, is there a fee that you have to pay in addition to the tuition that's like a Republican Union membership? It goes to all the Republican leaders, and then
No,
if you
no,
don't
and
pay it, you're a racist.
yeah, just in case you were really worried, when I was in classical conversations in Portland, Oregon, before I joined in Vancouver, it was probably mostly Democrats. I know you were worried, so I'll put your mind at ease. Don't
Well,
worry,
here's
there's
what I
fair
was worried.
representation.
Yeah. Who was what I'm worried about is in the grammar, dialectic, and rhetoric. At what point they learn to be for gun control and to skip school and to march with signs and slogans?
Yeah.
Where is that? And
That is, you'd have to go
where's
to
that
your local
lesson?
government
Oh,
school
okay.
for that. So I
Well,
mentioned John Taylor Gatto, and I want to go
yeah.
back to that for a second because he had passed a couple of years ago, but he was a public school teacher in New York
Was he a good
for
guy or a bad guy? Just tell me the
a
answer.
good guy.
Oh, he's a good guy. Okay, good.
Okay.
Because you said Gatto, and I was like, wait,
It
he
might be
ran the
pronounced
Gatto family.
Gatto. No, it's
Oh,
Gatto. It could be Gatto.
oh,
I actually
Gat.
don't.
Okay.
I actually don't know, but I have a few of his books. So, um,
So he's from New York. He had a
yeah,
family.
yes,
You got a
exactly.
nice family. I got a nice family.
Yes,
Okay.
he was a public school teacher for just shy of 30 years. He worked in Manhattan and in Queens, kind of all over. He was so effective by the end of his career that he won New York City Teacher of the Year 3 times, and he won New York State
Wow.
Teacher of the Year twice.
Jeez.
And at the
What
end of his,
years? What was
I'm sorry,
the time?
90s, in the 90s, in the
So this
90s.
is pretty recent.
Yeah, in the
It's
90s.
not
And I
like
want to say,
1800s or anything.
yeah, exactly. Yeah, I
Okay.
should have said that. He wrote the book Dumbing Us Down, the hidden curriculum of compulsory schooling.
Oh wow.
And he also wrote the book Weapons of Mass Instruction,
Oh wow, that's a cool title.
which is a catchy title, and it's called The School Teacher's Journey Through the Dark World of Compulsory Schooling. And
Wow.
I mhm,
And
I
it's not just some dude like in his underwear in Kentucky with his chew, and he's like,
and his
all these
rifle.
liberals.
Yeah,
This
no,
guy is
not
a
at all.
he's a New York star teacher.
Yes.
That he won some awards or something
Yes,
where he's competing against all these other teachers.
he was two-time New York State Teacher of the Year.
Wow.
And here's what happened. He ended up resigning from his position at the end of his career with an op-ed in the Wall Street Journal called "I Quit."
Whoa.
And at the end of it, he said, "If you know for a way for me to make a living without harming children, let me know. I'm looking for a job."
Oh wow.
Yeah. But he won all these awards, so he obviously did something right, right? So he
You could make a
well,
case.
I guess what I would say is his students live to say that he did something right.
Okay.
I
Yeah.
would guess that some of your students are like some of his students, where he unlocked probably what you try to do every day in the classroom,
Mhm.
that you were fighting against,
Yes, I was
you're
definitely
fighting
fighting.
against,
Yeah.
yeah, you're fighting against a machine that doesn't
Yes.
want students to think
No,
critically.
no.
You're
Right.
fighting
That's right.
against a machine that actually does, he argues, intentionally wants to dumb down students to a manageable working class. And he ends up
Whoa.
writing, before he
Yikes.
dies in 2017, he writes The Underground History of American Education.
Okay. And that's published?
Yeah. And that's why, and here you go. That's this, The Underground History of American Education. Now, what he found at the end of his career, and is a clue to how teachers, I guess, in public school classrooms can be successful somewhat, and how homeschool parents can be successful somewhat, is that he called for being a part of community, being a part of family,
Mhm.
coming back to what schools have caused children to be alienated from. And that kind of connects to the 93-year-old woman in the elevator, is that there is a loss, and the re-education camps, there is a loss of knowledge and culture between generations that's happening, because when you're in school for
Yeah.
12 for the majority of your waking hours, Monday through Friday, for 12 years, you do naturally miss out on time absorbing your family's cultural values, your family's religious values, your
Mm.
the knowledge that your grandparents would have passed on to you, or your parents would have passed on to you, or
Yeah.
those, or who would have called you out for your poor reasoning or manipulation. You know what I mean?
Yeah. Yeah. And it's really it's purely peer. I mean, I just remember how powerful the peer issue was in my public school. I went through public schools too.
Yeah.
And I remember it didn't seem to bother me that much until I got to seventh grade. And then
Really.
everybody was rolling up their jeans, and I didn't get the email. I didn't understand why everybody was doing this. And I was mistreated for not rolling up my jeans. And I thought, what does this have to do with learning? I
Yeah,
mean,
it
I
doesn't.
didn't even want to go to the cafeteria during
Yeah.
lunch. I
Yeah.
went to the library.
Yeah.
I didn't see anybody else going to the library. I saw in seventh grade that thank God there was a library, but where I could get some relief. But it was like I just saw that school wasn't really about school. It was about so many other things. It was about fitting in. It was about trying to be popular. I mean, even in seventh grade, that's not what a
Yeah.
13-year-old
Ding,
old should
ding,
be
ding, ding,
thinking.
ding. Yeah. Ding,
For
ding, ding.
most of human history, that's not what being a 13-year-old was about. It was about growing up and being a man and learning how to survive and protect your family and provide for your family and solve actual problems.
Amen.
And what a freaking waste. And
Well, and
so,
yeah, what a freaking waste.
yeah. Oh, I ran track. Okay, so wait, so you can't run fast unless you're stuck in a classroom. So if you're homeschooled, you run all you want. Go run down the block 5 million times.
Absolutely. Well, and that is that, when you think, I mean, think of that, Lucas, like it is, you think of how um it wasn't cool to learn, really, but you're at a school, and how that
It was
impacts
not cool to
young
learn.
people.
Yeah.
Yeah. And how that impacts young people and their view. I mean, we are social creatures. People help us, figure out how to view ourselves. The family can do a
Yep.
better job, ultimately, in my opinion.
Can
And
can I ask you really
yeah.
quick, what did
Mhm.
you major in college, and where did
Well,
you go?
I went to Biola University, and I was a sociology major.
What?
One of the more liberal disciplines at Biola University, and which is probably why I bring up some of the issues I brought up. I did study ethnic and minority groups. I did talk about institutional racism. I was a part of a cultural encounters program there. My mom is
Oh,
a Mexican. She's the daughter of immigrants, and I was a part of a scholarship program there that
so,
sought to help students of underrepresented groups of ethnicity at
mhm,
Biola University succeed. And
that's cool.
but one thing that we don't talk about is what public schools have done to
Yeah.
minority children. John Taylor Gatto would argue it's intentional.
Wow. I mean, it's hard to argue against that because it sure, you know, inferring intention. I'm not even sure if you need to do that,
Yeah,
but
you don't, because
I'm
it could be
open.
accidental. It could be
I'm open.
accidental.
I'm open to that. But let's get into the word conspiracy theory a second, because this is a word that I like to concentrate on, because people think that it means, well, they talk as if it means false statement.
Right.
Sometimes people say, oh, is this a conspiracy theory? And what they mean is they're asking, is this a false statement?
Yeah.
So I just prefer to clarify what you're really asking is this false? And the way you typically figure out something's false is you look into it and see if it's not true. But a conspiracy theory is just a theory that helps you. It's supposed to help you get at reality. And like all theories, a conspiracy is just an agreement between two or more people. It's a Latin-based word, con, that implies like company and via con Dios and stuff. So it means that there's at least two people there that agree that there's to carry out some kind of basic plan. Could be bank robbery, it could be terrorism, it could be kidnapping, it could be something more innocent like starting a business, or I mean, you typically don't use the word conspiracy. You could like, yeah, we're conspiring over here to start this business.
Right, exactly.
It could be something innocent like we're conspiring to surprise Jessica for her birthday party. And then, the best explanation for why all these people surprise you on your birthday is because they all agreed on it. I mean, that's a conspiracy theory. But so I just say he has a conspiracy theory.
Yes.
And it might be true.
Yes.
But regardless, the phenomena are still the same.
Yeah.
And still a disaster.
Yes, exactly. It could be accidental, but it's still there. The results are still there. I mean, what did you witness? What did you witness with graduates of K through 12 education over the years what do you witness in your college classrooms? Because you didn't say in this interview, I think, that you were a professor, been a professor for 15 years,
Yeah. I like how you turned that around on me. I was like, that was very like law enforcement. I love that. It was like you were working for the CIA.
Oh, I'm sorry. Did you want to
No,
go
it was
somewhere else
great.
with
It was
that?
awesome. No, it was awesome. I love that. I was like, I'm like, what agency are you with? And you're like, let's talk about you. Who are you? No. But I was teaching for 15 years and 185 courses. I actually counted them. Some of them were in high school. Some of them were in high school. I was sent by the LA Community College District. I was sent into LAUSD high schools to teach college. So I saw it firsthand. I saw the LAUSD. And when I showed up to the LAUSD, I actually talked to people. Like, I'm a very curious person. That's why I'm doing this podcast.
Yes.
And so I'll tell you one example. I went to a high school in the Valley. Oh my gosh, the Valley. And it was a rough area. It was kind of roughish area. And it's like a prison. I mean, my high school experience was not like this at all. And I mean, my high school experience, I don't know what I haven't been to my high school recently, but my high school experience it was an open campus. That was not paranoid. People watched out for weird, suspicious people. It was kind of a community thing. Like, what's that guy doing over there? It's kind of weird. Now, I also have to say that I grew up. I did not go to Columbine High School, but they were our direct rivals right across the street. And I could have gone there. I lived that close. In fact, I lived closer to Columbine than I did my own high school.
And it's like a couple thousand, I mean, it had thousands of students, right?
Those kids, though, would have been able to come onto the high school anyway because they were students there. And they were armed. And typically you can get into a place if you're armed. So that's not really the but anyway, but since the problem, I like the way I grew up. My high school, Chatfield High School, which is on the very cutting edge of the Rocky Mountains. It's real.
Mm,
We are a stone's throw away from the first ridge of the Rocky Mountains, like as far to the west as you could go without being in the mountains. And it was a lovely, wonderful place to grow. And I feel like I got a pretty decent public high school education in terms of that. But when I look back on it, I'm like, I did have excellent teachers, but the social pressures were never to learn as much as I wanted to learn.
yeah.
And I was frustrated a lot.
Hmm.
And I was so I went into teaching, and I'm in LAUSD here as a professor, and it's just like a prison.
Yeah.
It's a funnel. There's only one way in,
Security guards.
and there's seriously like wrought iron fences around,
Hmm.
and there are police there.
Yeah.
And so I'm getting in, and everybody with walkie talkies, professor, and I'm like, okay, and I have to be escorted in. And so the lady that's escorting me is this Hispanic lady. I said, how long have you worked here? She said, oh, XYZ number of years. And she just seemed depressed to me.
Hmm.
I said, what do you like about working here? She said, nothing. Nothing. Wow. I mean, well, so tell me about that. We're walking under a giant mural of Barack Obama's face,
Hmm.
like painted on the wall as if he's Mao Zedong or, Stalin or something like
Hmm.
that. I don't see any Republican stuff anywhere. It's all Democrat propaganda everywhere.
Hmm.
It's like the rainbow flags histrionically placed everywhere. I mean, like, I'm telling you, it was like so I'm walking through, and I'm like, and she is and most people there are miserable. And I'm like, what? This is what I've noticed, that the kid, she said, can I be honest with you? And I said, please do. I'm not just asking because I'm, I think it's socially awkward to walk 500 feet with you and not say anything. I'm really concerned that you are so depressed working here. I'm very concerned about that. And she looked at me like, you're concerned about my she trying to take it in, like
Hmm.
like she was having an authentic human experience, and it was so odd. Like it
So
wasn't like,
foreign.
so I said, so no, tell me what it is. And she said, there's no discipline here. You can't discipline the kids. You get in trouble for disciplining the kids. And in my culture, that doesn't fly.
Hmm.
So it's totally against the Hispanic culture. And yet the Hispanics
Hmm.
feel like they have to be, because it's Barack Obama's face. And they're
Yeah.
told
And she would do it.
brown this and brown that and of color. And it's just
Yes.
like, you're ignoring what's right in front of you. And
Well, and that's
she's
because
got a
she's a
job. I
product
get it.
of,
Yeah,
mhm,
yeah.
yeah.
She has health
Well,
benefits, but
yeah, well, right. That's what matters. She would do a better job. She
yes.
would do a better job of educating her children and her grandchildren,
Yeah.
and she would discipline them and correct them. And that, I mean, what you said earlier about you were frustrated because you couldn't learn as much as you wanted to learn. I had that experience too. I was good at school growing up. I knew how to win the school game, but so much of what
Mhm.
you do in school is not actually learning. You are trained to almost like, well, here's what you're trained in. You're trained in obedience of thought to authority. You learn how to regurg.
You're not allowed to say that.
Yeah,
No, I mean,
exactly.
it's
Yeah,
like it's not this is not true, and let me give you some evidence why, and I'm going to
yeah,
treat you like you're an equal human being, and we both
yeah.
want to get to the truth, and we appreciate
Hmm.
evidence. It's manipulation. Like, you see this rainbow flag, you thought marriage was this. Let me tell you, you are a bad person if you disagree with me.
Yes.
And get on board, kid.
Yes. And even if you agreed with it as a student, your parents are bad people
They were
if
bad
they
people.
disagreed with it, and everyone before them, and your grandparents. And so you see how that alienation comes.
Sure. And
And
what if your parents voted against Barack Obama
yeah,
and
well,
his
they're
huge freaking face is there permanently there? It's not like the school is named after him. It wasn't that. It's just
yeah.
like the manipulation is like, you better get on board. You better see what we're doing here. You are not allowed to disagree with us.
And you know what, Lucas, like when you're repeating that Obama's face is on the building, some people might hear that and say, what's his problem with Obama? He's so short-sighted. But
Yeah,
what
that's
you're
excellent. This is what I would say to that.
yeah,
I
oh,
would
go ahead.
say, okay, fine. Put George Bush's face up there.
Right. Yeah.
Put Dick Cheney's face up there.
Yeah.
Fine. Plaster the faces. And then I'll ask you, what is your problem?
Right.
And it's like, you know,
You understand that his face on the wall is actually an endorsement by the state.
when I grew up, we didn't have anybody's face on the wall of the high
No.
school.
Right.
We didn't have George Washington's face. We didn't have uh John Adams or anybody
Mm-hmm.
else, not even Lincoln. We didn't have
Mm-hmm.
that. And Lincoln was a hero.
Mm-hmm.
That's not how it was. There were some announcements and stuff like that, but it wasn't. I don't remember any political propaganda on my high school walls at all.
Yeah. Yeah. And
And
yeah.
I never felt like I was pressured to be one way or the other from the school itself.
Mm-hmm. I actually felt like I was pressured to be different from the school itself with regard to my Christian faith.
Oh yes, okay,
And
interesting. What happened with that?
well, and so, but I agree with you on how times have changed and how it is an endorsement. And I agree that it prevents free thinking because it is actually intimidating children into silence. And I actually think that is the goal. Or, well, okay, even if it's not the goal, it works, right? So, but in my own experience, uh, I don't think I was harmed by this in the sense that my father, and this is definitely a hat off to any involved parent, no matter where your children go to school. My father, we had great conversations at home, and he definitely was like, you're different. The school doesn't necessarily share our values. So if the parent
Mhm.
is having that conversation with the child, they're more able to handle the onslaught.
Right,
And
right.
looking back, it feels pretty minor, but at the age that I was, it felt like a big deal when we decided, a group of our class decided to, in a window decorating competition, this is one example, paint a nativity scene at Christmas time. And we won they were community judges. We actually won.
Mhm.
Our class won. I was the one who painted it. But like all classes, I was involved in student government, and all class officers got to decide what the painting was. And
Mhm.
that was an example. We were ordered to take it down by the principal.
Yeah,
He was
that's
afraid
a
it would,
problem.
right. And so, but any other painting could stand, and it was a small example of an
That's a really good example, though.
anti-Christian,
Yeah,
that could happen. And that was our artwork. Like, aren't we supposed to be able to express ourselves,
right,
right? Aren't we
right.
supposed to be creative? And it's just my beliefs, right? Like, can I do that? And so um we uh we
Uh,
were ordered to take it down, and I kind of petitioned and fought back, and it was able to stand. But that's an example um of feeling. That's just one example. I felt it in class discussions as well, an
yes, I did too. I did too.
anti-Christian sentiment. But I did have a dad at home that was almost like coaching me through
What,
it.
one moment. Okay, so you were saying about your dad and
Yeah, well,
anti-Christian sentiment in public
yes.
school. Yeah.
Yeah, and I think it just connects to what you're getting at with the murals on the wall, that as not only as children, do you, I mean, parents want their children to be able to freely think. And
What a concept.
what a concept. And J. Gresham Machen, who wrote Christianity and Liberalism, I think, in the 1920s, he was writing after compulsory education had been rolled out in the United States. Because it's important to remember, the United States wasn't founded on compulsory government education. And in fact, the minds that wrote a lot of our founding documents, look at that.
Same
Great.
guy. Same
yeah,
guy.
So that's it. There you go. J. Gresham Machen. Well, in his introduction, he calls compulsory government education or schooling a soul-killing system. And he says a public school system in itself is a good thing, to offer an education to those who need it. But he said it is only going to be of benefit if competition remains. And he says, I should read this quote to you. A public school system, if it means the providing of free education for those who desire it, is a noteworthy and beneficent achievement of modern times. But when once it becomes monopolistic, it is the most perfect instrument of tyranny which has yet been devised. Freedom of thought in the Middle Ages was combated by the Inquisition, but the modern method is far more effective. Place the lives of children in their formative years, despite the convictions of their parents, under the intimate control of experts appointed by the state. Force them then to attend schools where the higher aspirations of humanity are crushed out, and where the mind is filled with the materialism of the day. And it is difficult to see how even the remnants of liberty can subsist. Such a tyranny, supported as it is by a perverse technique used as the instrument in destroying human souls, is certainly far more dangerous than the crude tyrannies of the past, which, despite their weapons of fire and sword, permitted thought at least to be free.
Wow. It's like he's talking about now.
Yeah.
It's like, it's amazing how that hasn't changed. He hit the nail on the head.
In the 1920s.
Yeah, this I'm a big fan of old books. This it's funny you mentioned his name, because I was like, oh, I have a book by him. And this book,
that's cool.
I'm gonna flip through it here, see the
oh yeah, look at you.
And it's actually really good.
I think my husband has that book.
1923.
Yeah, I'm pretty sure my husband has that book.
This when it was made is 1923. I love old books.
Yes.
Someone's
my
just gonna
husband's
throw this
learning
away.
biblical Greek.
Oh, cool. That's awesome.
Yes. He's the better student.
Now your husband, you said he was from LA.
Yeah,
what part of
LA?
What part of LA?
Palos Verdes.
Yes.
The coastal region. So
a
pretty
swanky area.
A pretty swanky area, pretty gorgeous,
pretty cool
place to grow up in.
That's awesome.
And
so you guys are together as far as like home on this project. You're totally in sync on this.
Yeah, it's pretty incredible. When he brought it up, like I said, it was, hey, okay, when when you've grown up in K through 12 schools, as a female, I would venture to say most women, but I'll speak for myself, I guess. You feel you need to prove yourself with a career choice. And now in this feminist effort to say your value isn't wrapped up in your role as, in having babies and all of that, which is great. That's true. My value is not derived from having babies. My value is also
that's a pretty impressive skill, though. I mean,
it is. Yes. And only I can do it.
I could try really hard and I would never be able to match that.
Well, is that even true anymore though? But
oh, you actually went there.
But that's another topic. But
yeah, that's another topic.
I would say, but what wasn't meant, I I would just say my value also doesn't come from what I can do in the workplace either, or from what career choice I have. And so,
Where does
but
your
that was
value come from then?
God. My value comes from God, Jesus Christ. I'm created in the image of God, and my children are created in the image of God, and therefore they have an innate value. And I think that underlies why I want them to be treated like individual persons and not in a mass indoctrination camp, to be honest.
Now, do you
I'm not
have to
sure if
be
that's
a
where you want to.
Christian to do homeschooling? Like, what if someone's listening to this in the future and they're thinking,
Yeah.
I, you know, hey, you're a Christian, that's great. I don't have any problem with that. Uh, I don't know if there's a God myself. Maybe there is. I'm not sure. Do I have to be? What if I'm not? I don't identify. That's how the kids talk these days.
Yeah.
I don't identify as religious, particularly. Do I
Yeah.
have to be? Am I going to be shunned from these communities then?
No, of course not. Actually, the Classical Conversations program I mentioned earlier, like I said, is one of many I participate in. That one actually is distinctly Christian. However, there are thousands of opportunities for homeschoolers who do not identify as Christians, and they are more than welcome to participate. In fact, the I mean, I would say I mean, Christianity, religious beliefs are not the number one reason people choose to homeschool. The number one reason right now, according to the US Department of Education, is the concern about the school environment, safety concerns, and bullying. And the next concern is about the quality of instruction. So the last concern that's about 16%, it's for religious beliefs. And in my community of Vancouver, Washington, I mean, the growth of homeschooling is so significant that even the community center with tax dollars hosts a secular homeschool co-op.
Oh,
So
wow.
yeah,
Really?
I
Wow.
mean, yeah, I mean, homeschooling is, I think I mentioned, the fastest growing form of education in the United States. It now accounts for about 11% of K through 12 students.
Hmm.
And so when the fear of, will my child have opportunities to do sports, and will they just be a total outcast? Is there anywhere for them to go for help? I'm not a Christian. Can I find a secular group? Yes, yes, yes. There's the free market has answered, and there are sports for your child. There are non-Christian groups for you to join. There are as many, I mean, you have the opportunity to homeschool your child however you see fit. And you probably understand that your child is an individual. You probably understand that they're unique. If you wouldn't say it's God-given talent and ability, you might just say they have talent and ability, or
Mhm.
even special needs, and that
Yeah.
you would understand that with homeschooling, you can actually help them thrive in a way they might not in traditional systems.
Wow. So
So
special needs kids, how do you guys handle that
yeah,
for
well, special
homeschooling?
need children, yeah, children with special needs. There are a lot of families who choose to home educate for that reason as well.
Okay.
My community welcomes children with special needs, and I think one of the reason that children with special needs seem to thrive I mean, there's a lot of reasons in a homeschool environment, but one of them is the one-on-one ratio of a parent student. If
Yeah. You
if
don't get
the
that with
icon
public school.
Yeah, and I mean,
It's a
that's pretty hard to compete with. I think that's why
Well, with public
even when
school,
you
there's a
can.
bureaucracy,
Mhm,
right? There's a bureaucracy
mhm,
in support of allegedly in support of that. And there's a room and there's
mhm.
people there and you can
Yeah,
drop them off and you can sue them if they screw your child up, like if they hurt your child, but well,
right.
actually not like physically. I mean, you screw up your child mentally and they can't sue them, but
No, I mean,
what were you going to say? Yeah. Yeah.
yeah, well, your child can graduate from 12th grade without being able to read, and no
Yeah.
one
You
gets in
can't sue
trouble
them.
for it.
Yeah. You can't
No,
sue them for that.
um, no. So I would just say that the one-on-one ratio, or even if you have 10 children, a 1-on-10 ratio, it's just so far. You can't compete with that in the public school system, unfortunately. And a
Yeah,
child with a child with special needs absolutely benefits. All children benefit from a direct feedback icon and active. There's
right.
this term, I think it's academic engagement time, AET. And
Mm,
people would say that, there's research to show that that's directly correlated with growth, in the classroom. And so if you're in a class of 30 kids, or even if you're a class of 10 kids, and the teacher calls on Johnny and he answers, that 10 seconds that she's directing to him is engagement time, AET, right? And that's
hmm,
when he's having the most progress.
hmm.
But the teacher can't provide that all the time to all 30.
No way.
A mother or a father or a tutor can do far better. There's an immediate,
Totally
response
get
and
it.
engagement.
But
Mhm.
I like from a business perspective, I'm just thinking, I'm like trying to crunch the numbers here, and
Mhm.
just the numbers don't add up for me. I'm like, it's so help me out with this. It's like $600 a year. How in the world can you buy to have that
Yeah.
ratio?
Yeah.
I mean, what something's got to give on that. How do you,
So do you mean
what
something's got to
suffers
give on? Oh yeah, what
in
suffers?
terms
Well,
of,
I mean, I guess
yeah, in
that's what I
terms
was.
of something,
That's
the
that's
budget
probably
doesn't
what I
seem to
was.
be there.
Yeah, I guess that's what I was alluding to with my husband and I matching up on homeschooling.
Okay.
I, I, I think that God helped me reach a point where my child's well-being, and I'm not saying that that all parents have to reach this, and that any decision they make that's different than me is not good for them or their children. But it's, I think I believe in choice for parents. I think
You're
that's of
pro-choice.
utmost importance. I'm pro-choice for parents in education. And
See, I tried to
I
box you in there and you just
I know.
weaseled out of there like jujitsu.
Yes. Jujitsu is great. Um, I I would say I did have to come to a place where I was willing to consider the personal sacrifice of
Mm,
career for home education. I
yeah.
not all parents have to make that. They have to get creative. Um, they have to get
Have to get
creative,
creative.
and they
Okay.
are. They are getting creative. Like I said, I homeschool with single mothers. I homeschool with moms who work 3 part-time jobs and their husband works and their grandparents help. You have to, if you reach this point where the education of your child, and what we're talking about is like the true learning that you longed for in school, and the free thinking that your child is longing for, and just where the sky is the limit, then you will tend to make sacrifices to make that happen. And then once you reap the benefits of that, you'll keep doing it. And so that's, I think that I think ordinary people can give their children an extraordinary education with just a library pass and Wi-Fi. I do.
I do not disagree with you on that. Because I think it's about the attitude. I see
Yes.
I see my own students. I can't tell you how many times I've been on campus and I'm on a Friday. I'm just going to walk through and see what people are doing on a Friday. I'm just going to walk through campus. I'm going to walk through the library
Yeah.
and I'm going to pay careful attention to what people are actually doing in the library. First of
I
all,
don't
I'm going to
even want
pay
to know.
careful attention to who's in the library. And I'm not, I'm not, I'm just describing, I'm just noticing. It's amazing how squirmy people get when you notice you're just describing
Yeah.
something, right? It's like if you were at a Klan rally and I just notice you're all white. I just noticed that. I'm not saying all
Mhm.
white people are Klan members. I'm just saying, you know, there's not a lot of black people applying to be a part of that club
Yeah.
because uh they wouldn't be allowed to be a part of the club.
To
So,
say the least.
but I don't know how they tell because they're wearing those hoods. I guess maybe you could,
Mm.
anyway, but so I notice it's mostly Asians. in the library on a Friday.
Mm-hmm.
And that's a shocker. That's a real shocker.
Mm-hmm.
I'm not really shocked, but I'm just describing. And it just like I would walk through the parking lot at Pepperdine, and I've looked at the kind of cars that kids are driving, and they're like Audis and BMWs and Mercedes. I'm not saying that's the way it should be. I'm just saying that's the way it is.
That's how it is.
And when I walk through the parking lot of LA City College or walk through the parking lot of LA Mission College, which is in Sylmar, which is the swanky area of Pacoima, which is a rough area in LA. I think anybody would drive through there and see, this area has seen better days. I don't see BMWs and Lexi, and that's the plural of Lexus, Mercedes, and I don't see that. When I get to the place where the faculty and administration of these campuses are, they are definitely driving those kind of cars. Oh yeah, but not the students. The students aren't driving those. At Pepperdine, the students drive better cars than I had when I was teaching there for over 10 years. But I'm just describing, because my point is I'm just walking through, I'm seeing it's mostly Asians, but I'm also noticing what people are doing. They're on social media. They're goofing off. They're not digging deep. And typically, I mean, I'm not saying they don't get anything done. I'm just saying there's not this insatiable curiosity, like I have to know. Yeah. I can't handle it. I have to know, which is how I was. Like when I went into the Navy, I finished my bachelor's degree when I was in the Navy. I went to a Christian college too in Hawaii. I went to Wayland Baptist University in Hawaii. And I had to kick, claw, fight, and scratch for everything in my undergrad because I was working full time. And I went to school at night and on Saturdays. And I couldn't get enough of it. I would just so, and I didn't have social media, so who knows how it would have been. It was, before that, but it's all about the attitude. And if you can contribute that to your kid, like give them the confidence that this is really in your hands. You can't blame the teacher. If you don't know something and you didn't even try, or maybe you didn't try hard enough, maybe some of this stuff. But I think someone might be wondering, like a little bit later, they were listening to this, and Jessica, they might be wondering, I didn't hear you say anything about math. I didn't hear you say anything about science. And so I'm wondering, do you follow the science, Jessica?
What is good science? Science
how are they
is
getting
the
that?
constant search for accurate information. That's what our kids learn in our program.
Dang. That's a good. I like that. I'm going to write that down.
Yeah, the constant search for accurate information our kids learn in our program. We cover, our program, we cover geography, Latin, science, history, English.
Geography?
Am I forgetting something? Geography.
Getting a pen that works here. So,
well, I was going to ask you something. Oh, go ahead. I'll ask after. Go ahead.
Oh, okay. Well, I was just going to say rhetoric. I think that's what you said was for the high school.
High schoolers.
Okay. Does that include the science that you're saying and the geography and?
Oh, yes, it
math?
Includes physics and calculus. And
calculus,
Latin, and they start logic in 8th grade.
Ooh,
and here's the thing, I was going to ask. Yeah, they start logic in 8th grade. We've already are working on Latin, but they'll go more in depth in Latin in junior high and high school, and they do physics and So here's what you just said, and I'm curious. I'd like you to answer this question.
You didn't forget what you were going to ask me, right?
That's what I'm going to ask you for fun. When you're talking about that insatiable desire to learn and pass it on, do you think you had that desire because you're white?
Well, actually, I'm black.
Christian.
I'm black, and I'm also a woman. So,
do you think that's why you had that desire?
Oh, you're stereotyping me. You're saying just because I have a deep voice. No, I see where this is coming from. Well, that's a great question, Jessica.
Because
I was just illustrating the absurdity of the self ID
No.
movement, where
Yeah,
you self
yes,
ID
thank you
into
for
a
that.
group. Yeah, you
Thank
caught
you.
that. You're bright. Um,
Well, we hope.
well, yes. No, I don't think. I don't think so. I don't
I
think
don't
that ever
either.
came into my mind, because I know so
No,
many so-called white people that don't have those properties. It's certainly not a
no.
sufficient condition for being curious. And it's
Hmm.
not necessary a condition for being curious too, because I've noticed that there's people that are other ethnicities, other races, that seem to be curious. And I've met them.
I,
I've met them firsthand. And
hmm.
you seem to be curious. You said that your
Yeah.
grandmother was from, is it Mexico?
Yes,
She's
my
actually from
grandfather's from
Mexico,
Mexico. My
or
grandfather
grandfather. Okay.
immigrated, came when he was 17, and he joined the US military. And that's how he got his citizenship, fighting in World War II and the Korean
Oh,
War.
oh, cool.
Hmm.
That's
Hmm.
awesome.
And he won a medal actually for doing it. And
Oh,
yeah, well, what I'm getting at is that I agree with you that I think you're saying that real learning actually happens when there's a desire. And I think that
how do you get that desire though? How do you get them in students? Is it genetic? Is it
that's what
so
I'm getting
you?
at.
Okay, you have a kid, and so your kids are different, right? They have different personalities.
I guess, and I guess they are even different. Yeah, no,
I
they're
mean, do they
so
have all the
different,
same
and every parent would tell you they're so different. Gosh,
Mhm.
you wouldn't even know they have the same two parents, or that they're related at all. They're so different. And
Can you
I
impart
think
that? Can you impart the curiosity in all of them?
I think you cannot kill it.
You
I
can't
think
kill it.
that you I think that the I think that children have it naturally.
Hmm.
And I am seeing the beauty of what happens when you don't kill it in K through 12.
Oh, wow.
Does that make sense? I
That's a big value bomb that you just
if
dropped.
you visited my homeschool community, whether it's the classical Christian one, whether it's the homeschool resource center or whether it's the STEAM, we have a whole STEAM homeschool group where it's all focused on science, technology, engineering, math, and art, actually, and
Oh, art
if
too. Cool.
yeah, yeah.
Yeah, you got
Oh
to
yeah,
have
we
art.
do. We focus on the fine arts in our program as well. So, well, we're looking for a liberal arts education. Obviously, that's what we're after in RCC. But like I said,
You don't want
if
you want to
you
produce liberal people who are art people?
we want to produce well-rounded
Okay.
seekers of truth.
It's not necessarily art gallery owners in
Yeah, no, good
Soho.
distinction though. Good. Oh,
Okay.
so
I
yeah,
gotcha.
good distinction though. So Lucas, if you visited these groups of homeschoolers, whether you're in the South or you're in Washington or you're in DC or you're in New York or you're in the UK, because I've reached out to families in the UK, you will find that, to quote John Taylor Gatto again, genius is as common as dirt. And
Whoa. Genius
what
is
we
as
have,
common as dirt. Wow.
yeah,
Now
what
this
we
guy
have
Gatto,
done,
I'm a little
yes,
worried, because we love him so much. I'm just worried that we're going to
no,
discover he was a pedophile. There's some
yes, I do think
Vox
he
did an
has,
expose, and
yeah,
he was turning it
yeah.
turned out he was KKK, and
Yeah, well,
he
he
was a
wasn't KKK,
homophobe.
but I do think you should be suspicious because he has some things that are he has some interesting ideas. He was also just good at saying things for a punch, and those are the punches that I'm quoting.
Okay. Yeah.
But what he did right and why he won awards was because he took these children in Queens that everybody said had no opportunity and could never escape their social class, and he blew them out of the water. But it wasn't him, it was the kids doing it. He set them free. He
Mm,
basically said, here's a pass, leave my classroom and go find an apprenticeship in something you want to learn. Here's a pass, go study what you want to study. And so what I'm getting at is that he actually realized that the system itself was stifling the genius in his students. And he was trying to do at the end of his career anything he could to
mm.
what you're saying, encourage the curiosity. And
That's the key.
now that I've been in a homeschool environment for about 7 years and in a variety of different communities that are very diverse when you put them together, I can now see a little bit of what he's talking about that I didn't know existed because of the environment I grew up in K through 12
Hmm.
public schools. It's that children are naturally curious. They want to know, they want to understand the world around them. They want to go after newer and deeper, deeper why questions of understanding and how it connects. And they want to form connections between history and the present day. And they want to form, go ahead. I'm rambling.
Just call me a goat.
It's,
No, no, no. I was just a little puzzled. You said that kids ask why.
yeah.
Every small little kid I've ever met doesn't say why. They
Oh,
say,
they've never heard it.
they say, I know the answer to everything.
Really?
Yeah, every little kid, like even babies coming out of the womb,
Oh.
they don't cry. They just say,
Oh yeah.
I already know
I had to catch that.
stuff.
Yeah, exactly.
I don't
Exactly.
wonder.
I know.
So, I've never heard a kid ask why. Like
Yeah,
I'm doing something.
exactly.
I've never had a kid go, why? I hear them say, I already know what is happening
Mhm.
and I know why that does that. And I already understand. No, you're totally right. I mean, yeah, kids are,
Yes,
they,
they are
they're so
exactly.
annoying how much they ask why, but it's actually kind of cool.
Exactly.
So
And
yeah,
I would
you
not,
could stomp that out. I mean, well, you could,
you could, you do.
if
You
there's
could.
enough pressure, because kids
Yes.
want to fit in too.
Yes. Yes. And so certainly there are kids who overcome it. They
Mhm.
get labeled the top student, their parent
Yeah,
encourages them.
right, right, right.
So then they're like, oh, this is my identity. I'm going to rock it and I'm never going to stop. But for
Yeah.
the vast majority, or for those in a certain class, they take on this other identity. I'm remedial. I'm
Mm,
whatever, I'm going to live into that. And so what
mhm.
I really did not understand what
Right.
children were capable of until I saw children who had never entered that system.
Wow.
And they're
Yes.
brilliant. They're amazing thinkers. They blow my mind. And I think that the most
Yeah.
revolutionary thing some parents could do right now is homeschool their children.
Hmm.
So that's
Absolutely.
my, I do. I think it's revolutionary. And here's an example of, hey, what about me? I never took physics in high school. How can I make sure my children have a good physics education? Something like that. I mean,
Yeah. Yeah.
what you,
What if that's a concern? I mean,
yeah. Well, and that's why I brought up earlier that even the US Department of Education has found this, and the National Home Education Research Institute. And it's definitely true in my case, in my own personal observations, that students are not held back by, in the homeschool environment, their parents' level of education has no, it
it's
has
almost
no,
too
if
good to, it's almost too good to
it's,
be true. It's almost too good to
yeah,
believe. I feel like I want to have that hope. And it's
well,
like, it's kind of like hoping that I got something for Christmas and then you didn't get it.
but it
You got
boils
like
down.
I
Yeah,
hoped I would get coal
yes,
actually,
it sounds too good.
but
And
I never got
yeah,
coal. I'm
I
supposed to get
think
coal
that,
in my stocking. Coal is valuable.
yeah,
I always wanted
exactly.
a lump of coal. I was like, this is an option.
Oh
So
my
I just
gosh,
have to
that's
be bad
so
enough. Hold on. Okay.
funny.
So I was just angry and bad all the time. I was spray painting underpasses. I did everything I could to get that lump of coal to just, get us through the winter. That's
Yeah.
heat. And I got some stupid beeping toy. I
Yeah.
guess we can't now use this for like
Oh,
conservative
that's
people
so
because
funny.
no, I
The
did beep it.
conservative people,
I
I know
beeped
they're
it
so
out.
short-sighted.
I beeped it out.
Yeah. Well, I think it all boils back to what you said about your desire to learn. And if you have the
Yeah.
desire, and if it hasn't been squashed, and if you haven't believed the lie that it's not cool and that you're incapable of it, you'll
Hmm.
soar. And so,
Yeah. So it's
I,
about confidence too.
mhm.
How
And
do they
families are going to provide the best feedback on that. They have this, if you have this unconditional love for your child and you think there's, the sky's the limit, you're going to reinforce that thinking in your child that a school might not.
what about sports? What about
Yeah.
physical education, developing the bodies?
Mhm.
Make sure those muscles develop well so they're not like
Yeah.
all deformed when they're 30.
Yeah. Well, I,
Put some biceps on
uh,
these kids,
we,
make them climb some ropes.
yeah.
I don't
Yeah,
know, make them learn martial arts or something. What do you guys do for that?
well, we personally, my son actually does jujitsu with my husband at a gym. So martial arts, yeah, there you go.
Oh,
Yeah, so
is
yeah,
that during
my
what time of day is that?
he goes in the evening after we've done
Evenings.
some,
Okay.
multiple times a week. The average homeschool family is involved in more than two activities outside the home every single week, and sports are not off limits for homeschoolers. But again, parents are creative at meeting the needs of their children, and they care more about their children's health than any institution could. So if they can't afford it, so my son likes to run. He
That's
doesn't
what I was
like
going to
he
ask, is affording, because jujitsu costs money.
jujitsu costs it's very expensive.
Yeah.
There's okay. So my son likes to run and doesn't have an interest in a lot of conventional sports. When my husband realized he liked to run, he started a run club. And every single Monday for over a year, he has led a group of homeschoolers running 2 miles or more every week for over a
So
year. It started.
there's an adult present so that they're supervised, and nobody's
Yeah.
getting run over by a bus or whatever.
Yeah. And he's
Okay.
invited coworkers to help it out and other dads to come when they can. He
Okay.
even works overtime and uses comp time to make sure he doesn't miss, that sort of thing. Or he tag teams and has another parent fill in when he can't make it. That's an example of a free, consistent sports like team like
Mhm.
activity that we facilitate that anybody can do anywhere. We ran in the hail on Monday. We ran
Oh,
in the
wow.
hail. So we're not even limited by weather.
How do you
And
make
we
sure
go,
the kids are running the rest of the week, though? Because I mean,
well,
I
that's
ran
up to
I
the
ran
parent.
cross
Yeah.
country in
Yeah.
high school, and
Yeah.
we had to run every day. We didn't have a
Yeah. Well,
choice.
yeah, you don't. Yeah. And I will say, most states, thanks in part to Tim Tebow, who was a homeschool student and high school
I never
student.
knew that.
Oh yeah. So
Tim
there's something
Tebow,
called
really?
Tim Tebow was homeschooled all the way through high school.
I don't follow
And
sports.
yeah, which
I
is
don't
great.
even
Neither do
know.
I.
I don't know who
I
won the
just know
World
he's
Series
famous.
last year.
I don't
Was
either.
he in the World Series?
No, no. He was a football player and an NFL player, for those who don't know, for a little bit,
Oh,
and now he's really more like a public
awkward.
speaker um, and philanthropist. I'm not really sure how you would describe him now, but he,
Is he the
I
guy
believe,
with
he
the
won the
big hair
Heisman
that takes a knee?
Trophy.
Is he that guy? The big
I
hair and
do
the
no,
takes a knee?
no, slightly off. You're slightly off on that.
Okay.
Um, yeah, so when he was in high school, I think his in Florida, his parents fought for him to be able to be on the public school football team, and
Really? Wow.
uh, and there was basically what became known as the Tebow law, where you pay your taxes, so you should have equal access. And what about equal opportunity for all, right? So you should have equal access to public sports programs or public school sports programs. And so homeschoolers in almost every state can join any sports team at public schools they want to join. They can also get any sort of therapy that they want for special children with special needs if they don't have the means and they think that that's the right avenue.
Is this for Florida only, or is this
No.
across
I
the
mean, it's
country?
his, the Tebow law and his fight. I think that was, I don't want to, it may be early 2000s. I'm not really sure on that, but it really kind of catapulted, and it spread not with that name in
Okay.
almost all the states. So
Huh.
it's
I didn't know that.
there are less
Was
barriers for homeschoolers joining sports teams. There's also, it's common for Christian schools to welcome homeschoolers onto their teams because they want to beef up their athletics program. So for those, and I'm definitely sensitive to the fact that sports and private leagues and things like that are insanely expensive, and not everyone
Yeah.
has the means to do that. So
Well, yeah, and then also the issue of, like, if you're going to be if you're good enough to go into the pros,
mhm.
I think typically what happens is the I think it's a college that scouts out. It's colleges that do that, and they go to public high school football games, I
Mm-hmm.
think, or they
Mm-hmm.
look at stats or something. I
Mm-hmm.
don't know how it works, but did he go to college, Tim Tebow? Did he play
Can't.
football in
He.
college?
Yeah. Is that where the Heisman? He won some famous trophies, and I should know before I should. But
Well, it's
he
very
did,
rare
and then
for
he was.
to go from high school to football. I mean,
Yeah,
NFL.
yeah, he did.
That's
He did
almost
call,
never
but I want to
happens.
say he didn't finish, and then, but he
Okay.
was drafted in the NFL, and he didn't stay in the NFL very long.
Oh, okay. But
But
he thinks for himself. He's got a reputation for thinking for himself, right?
yes,
And
he
not
has a
conforming.
reputation. Yes, he has a
No
reputation for
wonder.
not conforming. No wonder. I mean,
So
what happens
interesting.
is when you know to look for it, Lucas, you end up seeing it everywhere. You see these entrepreneurs, you see these,
Ooh, entrepreneurs.
yeah, and you realize all of a
Yeah,
sudden you're
that's a
like,
good point.
oh, and so there's
You
something
have to
that
think
happens.
independently if you're an entrepreneur. You can't just go,
No,
what did they do? I do that.
yeah, yeah,
You have to
that,
think creatively.
in that voice too. Yeah,
How did you
yeah, and
start
I think,
Apple, Steve Jobs? Well, I look at what they do and I do that.
yeah, exactly. No, I mean, and that's you hear these stories of, oh, and he dropped out of college, and oh, he never went to school, and
I
Benjamin
fit in.
Franklin taught himself, Benjamin Franklin taught himself, George
Mark,
Washington taught school. Yeah,
Mark, how did you start Facebook? Tell us that story. Well, I've tried to fit in, and it was
no.
all about fitting in. That's
Hmm.
what it did. And then Facebook happened.
Yeah, exactly.
That's
Exactly. It illustrates the
entrepreneurs.
point well.
Yeah.
Yes, you're going to find that when you don't stifle that creative genius, maybe you're going to find you have more
Creating.
entrepreneurs.
Yeah,
And
creating businesses which
mhm,
employ people and give them a
yes, and
living.
solve problems.
And they
Yes, they
pay
solve
taxes which
problems.
support the
Yes,
firefighters and the police and
the
the
teachers.
teachers, which I'm a teacher, so I get it.
Yes. Yeah, we get it.
I
We get
totally
it.
get it. I want to be
Well,
paid too. Hey,
yeah, and we want you to be paid. And um, there is a service provided there. There's a lot of great teachers out there working hard, and I think they're just as frustrated as
yes,
anybody when they in the system, And there's
yes,
parents
that's right.
who
That's true.
care, who care very
Absolutely.
deeply, and they're as
Hmm.
frustrated, and they're trying
Yep.
to have a say in their kids' education.
I think
Um,
there's a lot of people that are stuck in the middle and they feel like they're in a spider web and they
yes,
can't get out of it. And they're like,
yes.
I see what you're saying, Jessica. You seem like a nice person. You're saying
Mhm.
you're checking a lot of boxes for me, but like practically speaking, so it's great to if we were so I'm going to write this description up when
Mhm.
we publish this.
Mhm.
And so I would love if you would give me some websites and stuff that I can put on this description. But do you have any off the top of your head? You don't have to give them now. You could just email them to me. But
Okay, I could email them, but
you could
well, yeah,
email them. Okay. Can you say
I can
one off the
email
top of
some,
your
but
head?
off the top of my head, I mean, the Homeschool Legal Defense Association, which is hslda.org, is a nonprofit that provides a great deal of free information on homeschool laws in every state, how to file a letter of intent, which is typically required to start homeschooling in many states, how to complete a transcript for your child when they're in high school and you want them to get accepted to college,
Wow.
how to, yes,
I
they
didn't even
provide
think about
homeschool.
that. How do you get the transcript? Yeah, that's true.
Yeah. Yeah. So there's so many, and in my community, homeschoolers put on these classes for free to help other homeschoolers be successful. But
There's a lot
homeschool,
of free stuff out there.
yes, there's a lot of free stuff. That's why I said if you have Wi-Fi, this wouldn't have been the case, but in this
Right.
time in 2022, you can facilitate a a good education for your child without much. But another website is Ambleside Online. I want to say it's .org as well, but Ambleside Online is a website
How do you spell
that
it?
Ambleside, AMBLESIDE
Okay.
online, and they provide what's called a Charlotte Mason education. She wrote books on the philosophy of education, and she it's generally it's a classical program as well. And it is, Ambleside Online provides completely free resources for K through 12 for anybody that wants to go there. I mean, they even purposely maybe use books sometimes that are past copyright just so that they can provide it free as an alternative for so that money is no object. And then classicalconversations.com obviously refers to the program I do once a week. And parents, you know, sometimes to cover the tuition, they will just receive the free training to be a tutor, and then tutoring covers their tuition and they participate. So,
and you don't have to be a racist to be part of classical conversations. Okay.
I know.
Because I was worried that I'd be rejected.
I know.
So
I know. Don't let anybody tell you different. It's the plenty of American families and families around the world are realizing that they can pull their children out and educate them very well at home.
Now, we didn't get into this, but what about like, well, masks and stuff? Well, how do you deal with that? Like, what if people, you know, by the way, do you mind wearing a mask for the rest of this interview? Just because I feel a little bit, I'm not sure how the internet works, but I just feel like it might be through the speakers, maybe some of it's coming out. I'll wear one too. Let me see.
That would make me feel more safe.
I'm just going to do this. I'm going to cover my mouth when I'm talking.
That's what it's really about, is having your face covered with anything.
I'm really concerned about your safety.
Yeah, thank you. I appreciate that. Yeah, well, as far as mask wearing go, I would guess that one of the reasons homeschooling grew so much in the last 2 years is because of mask rules. And I would guess that, well, actually
Are they still in force? Are they still there?
Well, Washington was the last standing.
It's
beacon of safety.
Oh my gosh. Oh my gosh. I know this is controversial. Unlike everything else we've said, we've only done non-controversial. So, but we're getting into some controversy here now for the first time in our conversation. And I personally think, this is my personal view, it has nothing to do with the Republican Professor podcast, which is also just my personal view. And I'm worried about being fired by myself later and having a meeting where I'm called into my meeting with me. And I go,
lightly.
you know, such a wonderful thing when I don't have to just censor myself. That's so just great. But I'm just going to let it rip. I think that when I see these kids with masks on, I feel like it's child abuse.
Yeah.
That's my view, because I think that so much of kids requires them to see faces and like what they're going through, they're developing. And I think it's an abuse of power for big people to tell little people, wear this on your face, and otherwise you're a vector of disease and you're going to kill somebody. I just think that is so manipulative, and so it's such a, I cannot even imagine what that does to a kid. What they're dealing with already. They're already so.
Yeah. Well, and you have the results of it already. You have the results in social anxiety, depression. You have the results in speech impediments. You have in delays that are happening. Like what we were talking about, the eye contact, the face, the seeing each other and immediate feedback.
Yeah.
I mean, the psychological ramifications, I can't even begin to understand, but,
so
you did ask. A lot of
people, oh, sorry.
Yeah, go ahead.
Well, go ahead. No, you go ahead.
Well, yeah, you did ask what we do about it. I will say, my personal choice was to allow my children to breathe. So I participated in activities that allowed them to breathe and show their beautiful faces and to see beautiful faces. That said, if a parent has a different conviction on that, I understand that the parent is the best, I believe, person to rule their family. And the free market provided a lot of space for, I have heard of communities, homeschool communities that met and they were all masked and they were socially distanced. And then there were communities that weren't. And you could find what you were looking for if
Okay.
you felt that it was there, if it was needed for your safety. I will say
Right.
personally,
Okay.
and this is very controversial, I was never under the illusion that any of this was for my safety,
Mm-hmm.
because I was pregnant. I was newly pregnant when 2020 started. And
That's right. You have a one
when
and a
the,
half year old. Wow.
yes. And
How
when the
long ago did
lockdown,
your 1.5 year old, how long ago was your 1.5 year old born?
well, I'm home, the math. Yeah, exactly.
I
Uh,
do this. Jessica, I will walk up to a family in the grocery
uh-huh.
store and ask, how do you guys all know each other?
Oh, that's so funny. And
And
just
just,
to see how
my
people
kids, I
respond.
love it. I love it. I never get
That's
sick
so
of
good.
it.
Well,
I
keep
have,
doing it.
there's twins in my class and I go, how many twins do you have? I don't understand. They're just going to be constant
That's
twins
so
popping up
good.
here. Hey, sorry,
That's so
Jessica.
great. No, that's so great. Well, and I love that what you're saying when you chime in and you're having conversations in the elevator and everywhere. As a homeschooler, we love that because we recognize that we're trying to raise our children to be a part of the community and be a part of community life, and that many voices from many directions and have a place in their upbringing. So anyway, I love that. But I would say I was pregnant when
Yeah.
the case one was announced in Washington, supposed case one. And so
Hmm.
when lockdowns happened and I was not allowed to see my doctor or midwife for my safety, but the Planned Parenthood down the street was kept open for abortions.
Ooh.
I I'll never I that was how it started for me.
You can't unremember
So
that.
no, and it was, we're
Yeah.
not safe to see whatever happened to prenatal care being important, right? Is it important? Because if it is,
Yeah.
and if my health and safety or the health and safety of my child has any significance, then I would be able to see my licensed doctor who would arguably know how to wear PPE.
Hmm.
I would be able to see my licensed doctor or get an ultrasound, but was I able to because of lockdowns? No.
Whoa.
But I was able to walk into a Planned Parenthood
Oh, let me
clinic.
guess the gun store was shut too.
Yeah, exactly. And let me guess, the churches were closed, but the tobacco shop and
Yeah,
the
the
liquor
churches
store
were
right next to it
definitely
was open.
closed. Oh yeah, the liquor
And
store is open though. Yeah. Because that's
so
essential. You don't understand. That's
you don't
essential.
understand exactly. So my child's prenatal care was not essential to the government,
Hmm. The bookstore was
but
closed.
the
I
bookstore was
know
closed.
my favorite used bookstore was
Hmm.
shut down.
That's
I could not
depressing.
believe it. I was like, books are now vectors of disease. Wow. Oh, but Amazon is open. Oh, I
Yes.
see. Oh, interesting.
Amazon.
Amazon. So,
Yes.
but we're for the little guy. We're really concerned about the little guy.
Yeah, we actually, that's when you realize that the state's lifeblood is your fear and dependence. And
Mm.
so
Competition.
if
It's all about
it's
competition,
all
but
about
you have to
competition.
protect the competition. That's the role of the
Hmm.
government, to
Yeah.
get out of the way and protect the competition, I think.
Yeah.
The
Well, that's
proper
what you
role.
think, but you're outnumbered. But yeah,
Yeah.
but
So how did you
homeschoolers
get your
will,
care that you needed? Whatever happened with
well,
that?
oh, I
Your
mean,
kid
I wasn't able to see my midwife for more than half my pregnancy, I don't think, or something. But then they lifted it, and then we
not
were able to
legally.
see each other. Yeah, we could talk on the phone and do telehealth appointments. They did that with hospice patients. They did telehealth
That's
appointments with
really bad.
hospice patients. I mean, don't even get me started.
Those old people, I can't even
Yeah,
imagine. We
yeah,
already feel like we throw old people away.
we do. Our
Certain
society
cultures
does.
more than others, certain cultures
Yes,
more than others.
yes,
I don't see
yes.
it as much in the
Unfortunately,
Asian community,
I
but
agree.
I just it doesn't make any sense to me, and it's so unfair for these people. I just
It's
happen. I mean,
brutal.
I didn't. My grandpa lives in Ventura County, I saw him on, I spoke to the Conejo Valley Republican Women Federation on Friday, March, I believe it was the 13th. I think it was Friday the 13th of
Wow.
2020.
Mm-hmm.
And it was we snuck it in right before the shutdown
Yeah.
orders.
Mm-hmm.
And I saw my grandpa. He was not worried at all about anything. And he he's 99. At that time he was 96. But he and then mostly older people. And
Yeah.
they were all like so frustrated with being told what they could do, can't go outside. Give me a break.
Mm-hmm.
It was ridiculous what they were being ordered to do. And my grandpa's
Yeah.
got a
Not go
couple of
outside.
my
Oh my
my
goodness.
grandpa has a story of sleeping in his car at the hospital because
Oh
he had to get care,
goodness.
but he couldn't get in. He's
Oh
sleeping
my
in the car.
gosh.
He's like,
That
he's a
just
World War II veteran. This is how
it
they were
just makes
treating
me so
people.
sick. Oh yeah. So I mean, and that yeah, they rewrote Medicare standards, I think, when the lockdown happened. And I volunteer as a nursing home chaplain. And
Mm.
so I saw a decline, obviously,
Oh,
in the seniors in the facility. I bring my
oh
children
man, that
along
just
to
hurts me.
volunteer. It's so brutal. It's so devastating what we've done as a society and what we've allowed. But we're well-schooled people. We know how to obey orders, right?
Hmm.
Um, so
Yeah. I
in
mean, I
my
didn't, I never stopped going out. I was the only
yeah,
guy on the
sure.
highway, I guess. I couldn't
Yeah,
believe how many people, and when people were talking about the lockdown, I was like, wait, what lockdown are you
yeah,
talking about?
right, right.
I'm an American.
Yeah.
You can't tell me where to go and not to go.
Yeah, you're from another, it really all connects to what we're talking about is like a freedom of thought and
Yeah.
freedom
I
of
just didn't
coercion.
believe, I guess I just didn't believe that for most people, this virus, the way it was working was based on what I heard people saying. I heard people saying conflicting things. And so I didn't believe that, seemed to be uncontroversial, that the Dems were in hyper concerned. And actually, even Bill Maher said this recently. He said that Dems thought that some crazy proportion of the population would be possibly hospitalized.
Right.
Um, and Republicans were much more close to the actual number, which is really low percentage. And what I'm really concerned about is now censorship on YouTube,
Mm-hmm.
because my grandpa's church was one of the first ones to reopen, Godspeak Calvary Chapel in Thousand Oaks. Rob McCoy was the pastor. They
Mm-hmm.
got fined. I think there was maybe an arrest. I know there was at least tickets and fines. And they were very thoughtful. They had doctors come on a YouTube program that was like, I think, it was a couple, I don't know if it was every night, but it was several times a week, it seems like. And they were just talking. I mean, it might have been once a week. I can't remember, but it was regular. And I watched a couple of them, and you could go for, they would talk about the data. Might have been once a week. I can't remember, but it was lots of videos. I know that.
Mm-hmm.
And then YouTube took them all down. And they were very thoughtful conversations about data and about biblical values and about their understanding of political philosophy and the role of government. It was a very thoughtful conversation, and it just was too much for YouTube.
Yeah.
So
Yeah. Well,
it's sad that because I'm going to put this on YouTube, it's sad that I have to think about possible censorship from YouTube, which is run by Democrats. That's not controversial to say.
mm-hmm.
It's not Republicans that are censoring anybody. It's
Mm-hmm.
Democrats, and they don't want the conversation, and they don't want people to be able to learn. They definitely don't want kids to pop into there and come to their own beliefs, which kind of
Right.
goes and fold that into everything you just said.
Right.
So, Jessica, you did you ever send your kids to public school?
I never did.
So you had these beliefs from the very beginning of your pregnancy, or how long?
My
How long?
beliefs about homeschooling.
Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, I really think that God transformed my thinking from what I actually grew up with, because I was probably judgmental and unfair to homeschooling. I didn't know much. I knew, and I knew a few families in my church, and they were great and they were friends, but you just believe that, well, but I couldn't pass that on because
Hmm.
the experts have to pass that on. So if
Yep.
I'm going to,
Trust in experts. Yeah.
exactly, I did when I went
Who's an
to,
expert though? How do you
right.
tell?
Yeah,
What if the
right.
experts
And
disagree with each other, which they do all the
right.
time?
And right, which is what you're referring to in that conversation that that church wanted to provide. God bless them. I mean,
Yeah.
I I don't want to appear to your audience insensitive to that demographic that was harmed by COVID. I lost an aunt in the hospital to
Mm.
COVID, and I am still grieving that. But what you're getting at with your grandfather and everything is that most of these measures were not in the name of public health, and the lack of conversation about around it, like you said, what the church tried to provide,
Mhm.
shows that. And I think that anytime we violate someone's freedom to make their own decision with their health or anything else, we are really dehumanizing them.
Mhm.
And I saw that play out with the seniors in the facility. They are, like you said, discarded. They are just, and I do think you're dehumanizing children in a sense too throughout this whole thing. And so obviously my goal is to lift them up and help them be who God intended them to be. But I didn't always hold that view. I think God has slowly changed my view and is always teaching me new things. I am curious, so I'm always learning.
Were
I
you
do
always curious? How did you become curious?
I was curious about certain things. I was good at school, the school game, doing the busy work and getting the right answers, which isn't true learning in my opinion.
Mm.
But I participated in extracurricular activities.
The school game. I like that
Yeah,
phrase. The school game.
yeah. I
Getting the
participated
right answers, but
getting the
not
right
thinking.
answers. Yeah.
Okay.
Oh gosh, it's something.
You cracked a code,
Yeah, and
and
I knew
and
how
then
to do it
rinse
well.
and
Yeah.
repeat, and then you get the grades.
Yeah,
Okay.
and I think I went to college and realized, oh, this doesn't actually mean I'm wise or educated at all, actually. It
Well,
just
that's a
means,
very mature thought. How did you?
yeah.
But
Well,
did
I,
you?
you know, it's funny, I qualified for the Torrey Honors Institute, which is a great books curriculum and honors program at Biola University, and I declined to participate when I went because I thought, oh, just nerds do that, and I don't want to. And then I had a roommate in the program, and she was
It is
wonderful to
kind of a
talk
cult.
to. Yeah, and I think I realized, wow, she can ask good questions or articulate
Okay,
her thoughts on
I
things,
gotcha. Yeah, yeah,
and
yeah.
I'm busy doing busy work.
Mm.
I'm busy doing busy work for an A.
Oh.
Like there's a difference here.
So
And you're
Tory Honors made when their stock went up when you.
yeah, yeah.
Okay, gotcha.
And then my husband, who really had a pretty lame experience in an award-winning public high school. He just wasn't there for the education at all, but he was a wrestler and he's a very deep thinker.
Mm,
He showed me through
God
his
bless him.
actions, God bless him. He showed me through his actions how much one can learn outside the classroom.
Mm,
And
that's
and
awesome.
it is awesome. And
That's so cool. You're honoring your husband like that. I
well,
love that.
he's wonderful. And so he has really been the driving force because he's a learner and he's never stopped and he's never been limited by money or classes or teachers or anything. And
Well, how did
I
he get curious though?
yeah, I mean, he would say it
Was it just his
awakened.
choice or
No, he
okay?
would say it awakened when he became a Christian.
So he did not grow up as a Christian. Or how would he put that, you think?
How would he put it? He would put that in name. He grew up in a Christian household, but
Gotcha.
um,
When did he convert?
he he attended the church I grew up in,
Oh.
and he was brought in with a lot of love and in this small church community,
Mhm.
and really given the word of God through the Bible, and he converted. I mean, he truly became born again. And I knew him through that period. I had met him. So he did truly become born again. He was a new man.
What age was that when he came to
He
your
was
church?
21. He was 21. He probably came when he was 20 to my
Okay.
church, and I met
So
him
he
on a
didn't
summer
grow up in the
break.
church. He didn't grow up in that church that you went to.
No, it was opposite ends of California, and I was
Okay.
going to
Oh,
school.
okay.
Yeah.
Gotcha. Yeah.
Opposite ends of California. So he,
Shasta versus LA. Yeah.
yes. And so then he was discipled a little bit by my dad, who's a pastor. My
Oh,
dad's been
cool.
a senior pastor of the church for about, I think it's 26 years or something.
Wow.
And he went to Multnomah University with Doug Geivett, actually, my dad.
No
Fun,
ways.
small world. Yeah.
Oh, no
Back in the
ways,
day in the
brother.
70s.
No ways, brother. That's how the
Yeah.
Hawaiians would say it.
So I like it.
Oh, no way,
Yeah.
brother.
So
Doug Geivett.
I
Oh,
think
yeah.
that yeah. So
So
yeah, I was curious in school, but about history and other things. I participated in extracurricular activities that I got to delve into deeply, like history competitions and things that I really geeked out on and I loved. But it was not in the classroom until, yeah.
So how did you come to major in sociology? This is actually a question I was going to ask you when you said that. But
A long
how
time
did
ago.
you come to?
Okay.
How did you get to this college? And you were like trying to figure out a major, and how did you come up with sociology?
I was admitted as a political science major, and I was in the department a couple years, and I transferred to sociology. I was originally thinking law school,
Okay.
and I wanted a
Okay.
pre-law track.
Okay.
I
Did you take
became
statistics? Did you have to take
Yes, I
statistics?
did. Yeah, I had to take statistics. Yeah.
Yeah. Okay. All right. That's
Yeah.
actually good training. Statistics is
Yeah,
good
and
training.
I really enjoyed
It's
my
legit.
statistics.
Yeah.
Yeah, I thought that was, gosh, I was like, this is the most practical math I've ever done in my life. It's
Yes,
just,
that's right.
this is, yeah,
And you
it
can see
felt
how people manipulate numbers, and
absolutely, and
that alone is worth taking the class.
yeah, it meant it added so much value to math for me. I really did love that, and I think everybody should get to take it. But
Can homeschoolers take that statistics?
they sure can. They could probably find it for free online, or they can find it at a local homeschool community for almost free or free. People
Well,
are the problem solvers, and if you give them enough leash, if you loosen the leash, if you give them enough space, they'll solve the problem. They'll work together to meet the needs of their children.
that's awesome. You've given us so much value today. I'm so excited you came on and just poured into us, and I'm so grateful. I mean, I've got all these notes,
Okay.
and we're so grateful.
Yeah, I'm sorry for the long conversation, but it's a stimulating one.
No, that's
It's
what we do.
important.
We tell
Yeah.
people we do long form like Joe Rogan.
Yeah.
And it's funny because people say, "Oh, I don't know. I will maybe do like a half hour." Yeah, an hour and a half later,
Yeah,
they're
exactly.
still going. And I'm
Yeah.
like, see,
Yes.
if you have an attention span, which you clearly do, sometimes people don't like rushing through and, oh, we got a break. And then there's the music, and then they
Oh
go,
gosh.
or like some of these people, it's so weird how they transition so fast. Like Ben Shapiro, they'll be talking about some crazy thing, a million miles an hour, and then do you have LifeLock insurance or whatever? Get
It's
this
so
pillow, get this
upsetting as the
certain pillow.
listener. I
It's just like,
know.
wait, hold on a second.
It is so
It's so
upsetting.
disorienting. So
That's what happens to kids when the bell rings at school. They're right when they're about to get it and have a breakthrough. Bing,
they can't
stop.
do the deep work.
No.
I totally get that. They can't do the deep work because the deep work is constantly being interrupted.
Yeah.
When I had to do my dissertation, you have to spend lots of time in the library. At least I did. You said that Tory Honors, this is the last little thing I'll say, is you said Tory Honors was a gray books program.
Great.
And I remember, oh, great.
Great books. Sorry, great books. Yeah.
No, that explains a lot because, okay, that makes actually sense, because I was going to say, I walked through those spaces at Tory, and some of the books were not gray. And I freaking lost it. I was just like, this place is a bunch of bullshit. And, you know, how do you explain this? And people were like, chill out, man. It's a
Yeah.
gray books program. I'm like, are you saying I'm blind? Are you saying I can't see?
Yeah.
That book has a blue cover. And I flipped through them, and a lot of them didn't even have any pictures or any
So
pie graphs or charts. And
that's
there was no
disorienting.
facts. There was no
No.
statistics. And so I
Yeah.
was like, anyway, okay. Well, we'll let you go,
Oh,
Jessica.
thank you
Thank you
so much
so
for the
much.
time.
And
Thank
we'll
you.
see you later.